Alright guys, so welcome to the part 2 of how you can actually integrate Paystack to your web application and get paid in USDT. Alright, so you can charge people in USD using that of the Paystack, and we do know that Paystack is just an African payment processor that only deals with just African currencies, but they do have a way you can actually charge your customers in USD or dollar. Alright, so this is the part 2. What I want to do right here is, first of all, let's preview what we did in the last one. So we did created this particular interface, and all we need was to just fill in our name, and then once we fill also our email and then hit on proceed to pay, you see that it tries to take us to the payment page. And that's why we had this transaction started right here. So let's go back to the coding environment, and that just basically that message is really coming from this particular place where we'll have this right here. So this is what we have, and we want to take that further in this particular one. So let's go into our Paystack class right here and then create the classes that we need to be able to make the payment or initialize the payment right here. All right. And we say that we're going to actually use OOP. So we're going to kind of make use of OOP in this. So within this place, let's first of all throw in our PHP tags in here. I want to close that. And the first thing I want to create right here is to go ahead and create our class, which we're just basically going to call that of the Paystack, which is just this particular file right here. So this is going to be called the Paystack right there. So within this class right here, we're going to do a couple of things in here. Of course, we're going to need to also make use of our classes in this particular place right here. We're talking about being able to fetch our Paystack. So within this particular class right here, we need to like grab onto our Paystack secret key. And I think what I'm going to do right here is to let me just open config right here, and let's use this opportunity to work on the config right here to be able to like grab onto our Paystack keys. And to do that, it's really going to be very simple. So let's throw in our PHP tag in here. And what I want to do, the first one is I'm going to just do define. And within here, we want to bring the Paystack's secret key right here. So we're going to do Paystack underscore, and we're going to just say secret underscore key. And which simply means that we're just basically going to go ahead and set that to the key right here. So, and all you want to do is to go to your Paystack dashboard, and then you can grab onto your key from your dashboard, all right? So if you go to a section where we will have this right here, at first let me switch to test mode so you don't see my live keys. So if I open this up, and you can go ahead and then grab onto your test secret key. If you scroll a little bit down here, you're going to see that you can grab onto your test secret key, all right? So I'll grab my own and then try to paste that within this particular place. So my own is actually sk underscore test, and we're going to just have a bunch of characters right here, all right? So all you need to do in this regard is to just make sure that what you paste here is actually your own test secret key or live secret key, depending on the environment that you are in, all right? So that is just that. So if we have that on that place, I want to terminate this line. The next one I want to work on is going to just basically be the base URL. So let me copy this just to speed things up a little bit. I want to paste that a couple times. So we do have this right here. So I want to change this from what it is right now. Instead of paste that secret key to the base URL, so I'm going to just do base underscore URL right here. And what this is actually going to do is for us to like link onto the endpoint for Paystack payment initialization right here, right? So to do that, it's really very simple. You can go to Paystack and get that. But however, I'm going to just do HTTPS, which is just basically the same thing right here. We'll do colon then double / and it's actually called API and .paystack.co, like that. So this is just basically the URL that you need, or the endpoint that you need. So you have to fix that against the Paystack base URL. And then after that, the next one you want to work on is just to like grab onto the base currency, the currency you want to use, not just the base currency. So for that reason, we're going to just basically change this from what it is right here. And you can just say something like currency. And within the currency right here, we just basically need to make use of USD right here. All right. Because we're going to just be collecting the payment in dollars. And then after that, we do have the callback URL. So we want to change this from what it is right now. And we can just call that callback. This is going to be URL. All right. And the callback URL that we're going to just basically use can be the local URL that you do have right here. All right. But if it is actually online, make sure you put your live URL within this particular place. But in our own case, we're going to just basically use this verify endpoint right here So for that reason, what I want to do right here is if I copy this and I want to go back to my development environment, paste that right here. However, I want to change this endpoint that we have in here into verify, which is just signifying the page that I will use to verify the payment that I just got through. All right. So make sure that you put something of this nature in your own environment. So if it were actually something online, I would add something like HTTPS right here and then take away local and then make sure that I put the right domain right here and then the page that I want to use to do that. All right. But let's take it back to the local environment since we want to verify the payment offline and we are not basically online at this particular point in time. So this is just basically how your config is actually going to look like. So let's save the changes. And once we get back in here, we want to make sure that we kind of link to that particular file called the config. And to do that is really very simple. How do you do that? You can do that at the very top right here. So I'm going to just do require. You can use require once you want to do that or even include. So whichever one you want to basically use. So I want to do that in here. So this is going to be config.php right here, and I want to terminate this line. So we do have access to everything that is actually on the config file right here within this particular page with this line that we just brought in right here. So within this Paystack class that we've created right here, first of all, let me store the what is it called? I want to store the secret key that is actually used to make the API request. All right. So let me just say, let me put a comment in here. Say store the secret to authorize the Paystack call, and I want to put that in the private class in here. So I'm going to just do private, and I'm going to just basically go ahead and put that into let's call that a secret key right here. So it's going to be secret, and let's just see it for that line. So the next thing I want to do is to go ahead and then create a constructor. All right. So to do that, if we get down here, we can go ahead and create a constructor down here. So let's do that. So this is going to be, I'm going to just do public, and this is going to be function. And this is just basically a method, guys. So this runs automatically when the method of this class is actually called. All right. So we do have that. So we're going to just basically do function, and we're going to just do underscore, and we can just call this constructor. So this is going to be constructor like that. And let's throw in, not really constructor, but construct. Let's call that construct. And we'll have that on that particular line. Well, down here, we want to do a couple of things in here. The first thing I want to do on this particular place right here is going to be to like maybe let me first of all call this particular method in here. And to do that, we can use this keyword called this right here. We can use our arrow and we can just say this is going to be this particular secret key that we do have in here. So let's throw in that right here, paste that, and we can just set that to be equal to, and this is just basically going to be the Paystack secret key right here, right? So I'm going to do Paystack underscore. This is going to be secret. Let's make sure I type that correctly, and we're going to just say key right here. It's just basically coming from here. Just want to make sure that it's just the same thing that I have in here that I'm just basically going to put in here, right? So that is just that on that particular line. We can terminate this line on right there. So after we have made this constructor method right here, which runs automatically, I want to get down right here, and the next thing I want to do right here is to like create a function that we're going to just basically use to like initiate the transaction. And this is just basically going to need some criteria, right? So let me put a comment in here. So that's just basically the method in here to like start a new transaction with Paystack. And if you want to do that, let's put that this is going to be a public function. So I'm going to just do function right here. And what we want to do, this is actually called the init. Initialize. This is actually called the initialize transaction. So this is going to be transaction. And we can go ahead and within this particular place, we're going to need a couple of parameters, because if you want to make payment in that of the Paystack, for instance, if we go back to this right here, you see that basically we're going to need an email and also an amount. So we're going to just like reference to those within this particular place right here. So to do that, the first one we need is to just let's grab onto the email. So we're going to just do email right here, and I'm going to introduce a comma, and the next one is actually going to be amount right here. And I also need to like work with the reference right here. All right. So this one isn't actually compulsory, but I want to put that right here. So this is going to be reference. All right, so those are basically the classes we're going to need. However, I think I did not actually type this correctly. This should be initialized this way. So we do have that, right? I want to throw in my curly brackets in here. So we need to create these fields that we have in here. We need to create those fields in here, those input fields right here. So to do that, we're going to I want to put this in an array. Let's put that in, I'm going to just first of all put that inside of a variable. Then we'll just call the fields. Let's type this correctly, guys. So this is going to be called the fields. And did I spell fields correctly? Yeah, so that should be okay. So down here, let's throw in our array right here, and we can just first of all let's terminate this particular line to make sure that we don't forget that in the future. But within this particular array that we do have in here, we're going to need an email, right? So let's throw in our email first of all. I'm going to just do email because we'll need that from Paystack. And let's use arrow right here and let's set that to be equal to the variable up here, which we call the email right here. So let's do that. So that's going to be email, and let's introduce a comma in here. And then the next thing we need is actually going to be maybe the amount. So let's just do the amount right here, and we can also use arrow and then go ahead and set that to amount, which is the variable that we do have up there. So this is going to be amount. So we do have that, and do know that Paystack charts in such a way that whatever value you have added as the money you want to pay, it's a kind of a convert that into kobo. All right, so for that reason we want to make sure that we multiply that amount by 100, and that's just basically how we are going to be able to like get the actual amount that we want the customers to pay. So if what you have in the payment page is actually 1000, it's going to multiply that by this amount right here, because at the end of the day what happens is that a device, it's a kind of a device, whatever amount that is actually here by something of this nature. All right, so we want to make sure that we run that up to the certain amount that we want. So let's make sure that we have this multiplication sign right here. Just put an amount right here and multiply it by 100 right here. It's going to kind of arrange that to come up with the right figure. So we want to get paid 100 naira. That's what we kind of said right here. All right, so if you want it to be 500, just do 500 right here, and just like that. All right, so but 100 is just basically what we want, but always make sure that you multiply that by this right here. So that is just that on that particular line. We do have the amount. So the next thing that we need is actually going to be the currency. So let's do currency right here, and the currency is actually going to be set to, and actually we do have that kind of a defined right here, which we kind of call the currency. For that reason, let me just basically copy this and then go ahead and put that right here. All right, so we do have that on that line. And then the next one is actually the reference. So let's put the reference right here. This is going to be reference. Let's just go ahead and just do reference. It's already available right here, and that is just that. Then the next thing that we need is going to just basically be the callback URL. So I'm going to just do callback URL right here, and let's use our array again, and we can set that to this callback right here. I'm going to just copy that, go back in here, and then paste that right here. So this is just basically the last array that we need on this page. So for that reason, we cannot introduce a comma as on that particular line in there. All right, so after that, we can let's try to call the Paystack URL right here, and we're going to just do return, and this is going to be return, and I'm going to just set that to this, and that's just basically going to be, I'm going to just use the method called a make request, and within this right here, we're going to go ahead, I'm going to just throw in let me throw in double quotes in here, do a forward slash, and then do transaction right here. So this is going to be transaction, and we're going to just do forward slash. This is going to be initialize, and we're going to just basically introduce a comma in here. And the next thing we need is to bring in the fields, which contains all of those things that we basically want to use to make the payment. All right, and then after that, we can track the data right here, and let's put that. It's going to be in quote, guys. So let me do that. This is going to be data, and we need another square brackets in here, and this one is actually going to be the authorization URL. So this is going to be authorization underscore URL right there, and let me just put a comment at the top right here so that you understand what this is all about. So we're just basically trying to call the Paystack API to initialize this transaction and then return the payment URL. All right, so with this right here, it can return the payment URL that we're basically going to use within this particular page right here to continue the payment. All right, so that's just basically what we're trying to do with this line in here, and I hope we are really correct so we can terminate this line in here. All right, so with this right here, it should be enough to like maybe to kind of initialize our transaction. But I want to take this a little bit further, and that's just basically going to be to verify payment. All right, so let's say create a method to a kind of a verify payment and authenticity. So I'm just do this is going to be authenticity. authenticity like that. I don't know how to spell authenticity, but that's just what it is. This is gonna be, so you just take it like that, guys. So to do that, what we want to do, I'm gonna just do public function right here. This is gonna be public, and we're gonna just basically say function. Is that correct? Yeah. So let's name the function right here. We could just basically call this verify. So this is going to be verify. Transaction. So this is going to be transaction right there. And then we can, within this place right here, of course, we're going to need the reference to be able to make the verification. So for that reason, let's pass in reference in here. All right. So we do have that in there. And then down here, let's throw in our curly brackets, and we can go ahead and we're going to just do return. And what are we basically going to do right here? We want to like make sure that we kind of call the Paystack API to a kind of verify a payment in here. And to do that is just basically going to be similar to what we kind of did right here. All right. So we're going to just do, this is going to be this, and we're going to just go ahead. I think I should just basically kind of copy this, guys. So copy this right here, and I can go ahead and try to, this is going to be an arrow right here, right? And we can paste this, and we do have make request in here. And after we do that, we got into this place. So, but instead of calling initialize right here, we want to call verify right here. All right. And basically, we're not going to need these fields in here that we do have right here. But however, what we're going to just basically do is I want to take this away from here, and I want to go ahead and then grab onto the what is it called, the URL, right? The reference rather. So let's put a forward slash in here, and we can go ahead and then kind of concatenate onto, let's say, URL. This is going to be in code, and what you need within this URL and code is just basically go ahead and then pass in the what is it called, the reference. So this is going to be reference, have that in there, and that should just basically be that on that line. But we do not actually need this on this line, so basically going to take that away. So let's make sure that we do have the closing square brackets right here. All right, so that is just how that line should just basically look. So if that is done on that line, we want to, I think we're going to need a private helper to be able to like make a request to the Paystack API. So to do that, let me just put a comment in here. This is going to be, so we're going to make a private helper method to handle making a HTTP request to the API. And if we want to do that, we can just do that down here. So it's going to be private function, and we're going to basically name the function right here. We just basically going to be that make request that we kind of used earlier. So this is going to be make request. So say make request right here, and then within this place we're going to need a couple of things in here. The first one is going to be the endpoint. So let's do endpoint right here. So the next one is actually going to be the, I think it's just basically going to be the fields. So I'm going to just do fields right here. And the last one, we just, not really the last one right here, but we're just basically going to set that to null, just making that nullable. And that is just that on that. So let's throw in our, what is it called, the braces right here. And then within this place, we can work on our core to be able to like perform this transaction right here. So what I'm going to do is just to go and copy the coin. You have actually watched me do this a lot of time on my channel. So I just basically want to just copy and paste that right here, and then we'll go through it. All right. So I do have that copied to the clipboard. Let me go ahead and paste that right here, and then we can just go through it. All right. So let's paste that, and that is just what we'll have in here. So it's a kind of a started from here, the code that I just copied and pasted right here. Every other thing that you had earlier, they are just still right there, and then it stopped right here. So let's take a look at the code right here. So here we're just kind of initializing our CURL, which is coil right here. Then after that, we're trying to bring in the endpoint with this right here. We do have that already available. That's just the endpoint. And after that, we kind of set the transfer to true right here. And we are just setting the headers with this right here. So the header is actually going to need a secret key, which we already have present in this place. So if you double click on that and go up, you see that we've actually gotten the secret key, which is actually in terms gotten from here. All right. So that's just what I've done on that line. So the next thing we did right here is just set the content type to whatever you are seeing here, application. You can set this to something like application. Do JSON right here. All right. So, but I'm going to just basically stick to this in this one. And then after that, we do have our fields, which we are using if statement to determine right here. So this is just going to be a post method. That's why we're just basically doing this right here. So we need to specify the method, and then after that we are building our fields right here. And after that, since I'm actually on a local device right here, I'm just actually offline. I'm going to just set these things that we're having here to 0, which means false, all right? Which means it's going to just basically allow me to test this transaction without being connected to the internet, without having that live on a live domain, all right? So if you don't do this, it's going to like be requesting that you should just switch to a live domain before you can actually do this. So we're on a local server, we're turning all of these things to off right here. So that's just what it is, so that it doesn't force us over to HTTP. But once you upload this to the internet, you want to go ahead and then remove these lines and just make sure you turn them to 1. So change this to 1 and also change this one to 1, because it's really compulsory. It's important that you have them enabled on a live mode. So after that, we are executing the call right here. We're checking for errors right here. And after everything, we are just basically going to close that right here. But here, we are just building the whatever that gets returned to us from this particular coil right here. After the execution, what I'm basically doing is that we try to convert that and put that into something like an array, so we can access them into array. If you want to do object, you can also do that. So, but this is just basically what it is, guys. And I hope that you guys kind of understand that. You can take a look at the rest of the code in here and just basically everything. I didn't change anything. All right. So that's it. So let's save the changes on this page. And I think that we're kind of ready to go and then test if this payment is actually going to succeed or not. So before we do that, we need to connect this page to our initialization page right here. And if you want to do that, it's very, very simple. We can still use our require once to be able to do that. So let me do that right at the top of this particular place. So I'm going to do require underscore maybe once or whatever I want to do. So this is going to be underscore once right there, and you want to just basically bring in this file. So for that reason, through our post and just say Paystack, and make sure you maintain the case sensitivity, guys. So this is going to be .php right here, and with that line, we've connected these two files right here. So, but the next thing we want to do is to just call the method on this particular page. So to call that is very, very simple. So let's go ahead and I'm going to just do Paystack, because I want to put that in a variable that I'm just basically going to call Paystack. And I'll set that to new, and this is going to be Paystack. Let's type that correctly. It's going to be Paystack, and we throw in this right here. All right. So with that line, we've actually called that. And the next thing I want to do on this page is we're going to have something like a payment URL, right? I'm going to just like try to, well, I'll come back to this as we move along anyway. But what I want to do right here is if I get down to this section where we are trying to initialize the payment right here, there's something that we're basically going to do right here. And that's just basically going to be to, let me say, I want to create a variable in here, call that payment, because the payment URL is being returned. So we can just do payment, and we can just do maybe URL right here. So this is going to be URL, and we can set that to be equal to, so I guess if I go to here and this is initialize, I want to copy, I think I'm going to need this on that particular page right here. So if I copy this, that's just basically what I want to use on this line. So I'm going to just do this. And with that, we basically need to, first of all, this is going to be Paystack right here. And we can just use our arrow right here and set that way. So this is just going to be that we grab onto the payment URL that we have actually gotten from this method right here, or this class right here. And we pass that or save that into a variable that we kind of call a payment URL right here. So we should remember to terminate this line, guys, so that we don't have some unusual error. So, and of course, we're going to need an email, and we're going to need an amount, and also need something like a reference to be able to make the payment right here. If everything kind of works just fine, we can go ahead and then redirect to this particular payment URL right here. And if we want to do that, we can use header redirect function in PHP. And this is just going to be this way. So I'm going to just go ahead and just say location, throw in my colon in here. And what I want to do is to go ahead and put this particular variable right here. I think I got that. Will I copy that? Let me just copy it right here. And we can go ahead and then put that in this right here. So that is just how that is just basically going to be. So we do have that on that particular line. We can go ahead and then terminate this line in here, and that just should be fine. All right, so we can add exit right here so that we don't get had already said sent kind of a error on the page right here. However, I want to this particular variable right here that we are just I want to go back to the tab right here, and what I want to do is just initially set that to an empty strings once the page kind of starts. So we'll set that to empty strings in here, and I think that that should just basically do it. What we want to do right here is if we go back to our environment in here, I want to refresh this page. Okay, we do have an error and it says pass error, syntax error, unexpected these expecting this on page line 24, and that's just basically coming from, okay, it's coming from this page right here, and that's happening on line 24, which is just around this particular place. So let's take a look at, I think we need to add a closing square bracket right here. All right, so let me do that, and it should just basically be okay. So if we save the changes, the error is basically gone. If we go back in here and we refresh, and error, we still have another error right here, which is just talking about undefined the variable secret key in the same page right here, and that's on line 10. Let's take a look at that on line 10. So if we scroll a bit up, this is just basically coming from here. All right, so I think the error is just basically okay, it's just basically coming from here. So we need to take this $sign, it's just trying to treat that as a variable, so we'll take that away and that should work just fine. And again, the spelling of transaction right here, of course this might not be the error, but I like to make sure that this kind of works just fine. So let's make sure that we correct the spelling of transaction right here. All right, and again, if you have done this here, we also need to like go back in here and make sure that we kind of correct that. So this should be transaction. I don't even know what I'm actually doing right here. I don't know how to spell these days. So this should be, I want to just, let me copy this and then go back to this page right here, then paste that right here so that it will just basically be the same thing. All right, so the error should be gone by now, because if you go back to our deployment environment and when we refresh, you see that that error is just basically gone, right? So let's fill out the form right here. So I'm gonna just do Adam and maybe something like Kenny, and we can just do Adam and we'll just do our gmail.com right there, and then we can hit on proceed to pay. And it seems like that is not really going through because we do have undefined index, and that's just basically coming on line 24, still coming from the same paystack.php, could just see right on this particular page. So line 24 is right here, and that's just completing of this particular data right here. So how do we do that? All right, so taking a look at line 24 right here, it's actually correct the way that I'm seeing it, but I think I know why that error is a kind of a showing up. I think it's just coming from the fact that what I added in the config file based on my API secret code is actually not correct. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and then put my correct API key right there. So that's just why it's a kind of a display in that particular error right there. All right, so you can clearly see if I open this up right here, see that this is just basically what I have, and this is not my real secret key right here. Okay, so I'm going to just off camera put this right, and then we can go ahead and then try that particular payment. It's going to just bypass this particular thing that we'll have in here. So let me go ahead and then do that right now. All right, so I have that replaced right there. The right key should be there right now. So if we refresh in here, I'm going to just hit this and then hit on continue. You're going to see that the payment is going to start. All right, you see that that picks up and it was able to grab onto Kenny, and this is the amount that we want to pay, and we can just make the payment right here. So if we hit on pay, it's going to go through. See that payment has gone through, and then it tries to redirect us to the payments page that we kind of specify that it should just basically go to. All right, and this is the reference key. If you take a look at that, this is the reference key. You can use that to verify the payment. So this is the transaction ref right here, and it's just basically working just fine. So what I want to do is let's test this one more time. So if I go back, sorry about that. So this is going to be initialize, opens up, and I'm going to just do Eze, and this is going to be Jude or George, whatever I want to do that. So let's assume that that's just the person's surname. So we're going to just do Eze Jude, and we're going to just do at gmail.com, and then hit on proceed to payment. You see that it goes through again. You can just make the payments and it's still going to go through and then take us to the verification page right here. All right, so I'm going to just basically stop the payment right here, maybe in the next one, we're going to take a look at how we can create this page right here, which is basically meant for payment verification. And it's really very going to be very simple. So that one will not actually take much, all right? So, but that's just what it is, guys. And I hope that you guys like the video. And if you truly like that, just feel free to give the video a thumbs up. And then do drop a comment if you do have anything to say about this in the comment section. I'm going to respond to all of the comments in there. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in part 3.